Welcome back to another episode of the Chats with Chels podcast. I'm your host, Chelsea Miller. Today is an exciting episode because I am publishing a bonus conversation that I had with Sean after our PhD conversation because he wanted to know about my experience in bodybuilding, what I have going on, and if I'm doing another show. And this is coming at a perfect time because I just published my show day vlog from 2022. I competed at the Excalibur in San Diego for the first time ever, and it was amazing. I had such a great time. If you missed that video, it'll be in a different playlist, but I'll link it at the end of this conversation. And if you missed my conversations with Sean leading up to this point, go back through this playlist and find episodes 1, 2, and 3 because you'll be missing a little bit of context. I'm not going to lie. Anyways, I am excited to share this bonus conversation. I am in the process of transitioning this podcast into more of a life situation and not just revolving around my experience as a PhD student. And this is sort of the jumping off point for me. So if you like today's episode, let me know in the comments below. And otherwise, we'll get right to it.
There he is.
Okay, we've got a little sub episode happening so I can talk about bodybuilding.
Good times. Good times.
Yeah, so before this, Sean had asked me, well, why don't you just ask me again?
Yeah, I was curious, number one, do you have a show coming up? Because I know we've talked about it, but I wasn't sure if you were currently competing or if you had, I knew you had already competed, but I didn't know if you were currently training for another show or not. So I'd asked you that. So I'll let you drive that a little bit.
Yeah, so I started my cut a couple of weeks ago. I think the show is April 20th. So I believe there's 25 weeks until the show. So I'm just starting my like diet phase.
Okay. And my next question that I was going to ask you was, from your last show to this show, are you hoping to come in, like what were your areas of deficiency that you're hoping to improve upon from the feedback from your previous show? Like, were you soft? Were you not striated enough? Were you, maybe your shoulders weren't symmetrical? Like, what were your deficiencies that you're hoping to overcome for this show? And what are you doing to work on that? What are you doing to improve that? And I'm just wearing my personal trainer hat, like I love like, and stuff, and so I'm like super intrigued and curious about like this.
No, I love it. It's like a reverse interview now. Well, I'll put like a screen. I'm gonna get fancy with my editing, and I'll put like a screenshot right here of like my first show pictures because my only feedback was overall size. Like I just needed to put on mass. And personally, like my personal feedback for myself is that I wanted a more fluent posing routine because as a first time competitor, I would practice posing, but it wasn't refined to the level that I would want to take to a national stage. And that's the goal for 2024 is to compete at a local show and qualify for nationals so I can compete and pursue a pro card.
Yeah, I mean, being up on stage, I mean, I can't speak personally because I've never been on stage, but I've been around enough people to like know what kind of how it works. And like, it's literally like theater up there. Like, yeah, you can be the best poser in the world from pose A to pose B, but if it's robotic getting from pose A to pose B, that loses focus and it detracts from it. It's got to be this fluid, like almost like a dance routine of getting there mixed with the posing and pausing. So it's like super
it's a confidence flowing in from one pose to another pose. And you can definitely tell the girls who have practiced because not only is it more fluent, but they come out on stage and you just have this like, wow, like that person is up there and they look great. And personally, I feel like I brought the wow factor to my first show, which is why I placed so high because I mean, and it all depends on who shows up that day. You know what I mean? But from my experience at my first show, I had brought conditioning, but I did not bring size because I didn't have it.
Sure.
But my coach and I just wanted to see where my starting point was at so that we could get some feedback on what to build from. So that day, I think that I brought the wow factor and I chose a bikini that was a great color for me. And my posing routine, while it wasn't fluent, I was still confident in my poses when I got up there. And I was still hitting them the way that I needed to present my body.
Right.
But I think and that's why I placed first in true novice and I placed first in novice in my class. But when I went up against the girls in the overall, I didn't compete next to them because the girls who are shorter than the taller girls, they need less mass to look bigger
Oh,
because their
100.
bone structure is smaller.
Yeah.
And so when I got to my open class, I knew that it was probably going to be a little bit more challenging because these are girls who have competed before most of the time. And these are the girls who are trying to qualify for nationals, which
Right.
they bring a different physique. And
Yeah.
so thankfully, the day that I competed, there was one other girl who had size on me. But in my opinion, I was more conditioned than she was in the way that they were asking for my division. But
Mm-hmm.
that day, they went with size and not conditioning. So I got
Also,
second in open.
yeah.
I got second in open and it still qualified me for nationals. But yeah, I could have gone to nationals, but in my opinion, it would have been a waste of time and a waste of money because I was not going to be competitive.
Yeah, makes total sense. I mean, it's really, I mean, it's probably the most subjective sport that exists on planet Earth, depending on
Yes.
what judges are sitting there and what they deem as, some judges may choose conditioning over size. Some
Mm-hmm.
can, it's really subjective to that particular person.
I
And
agree.
that makes it very hard to come into it. Like it's why you have to really strive to come in there with both boxes checked, right? Like you need to come in with the size to show that you have the muscles, but then you still need to come in with the conditioning to show that you're not soft, that you've actually put in the work to get to that point. And if you come in with one over the other, it comes down to the subjective level of which does the judge prefer more. And point in case, your experience that you got to, go through was that particular set of judges or judge, they chose size over conditioning. It could have gone the other way just as easily had the judges preferred the conditioning over the size.
Right.
But, it's just like the luck of the draw that day. That's why, I think that it was smart of you to own that and realize that, going through, because it's not an easy thing to navigate going through any level of show prep that, that I've seen lots of people go through and, the stuff that you've had to navigate. Doing that, knowing that you're going to go up on stage and not be at the level that is needed to even be competitive, and owning that and saying, hey, I qualified for that. And that's a feather in my cap. And that's fucking awesome. But at the end of the day, I'm not there yet and I'm not ready. And I don't want to put myself through that just for the sake of doing it. I think that takes a lot of maturity to be able to take that. Cause very easily you could have gone through that process and maybe that was the cut or the prep that just sent your body over the edge that said, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. And it was a bad experience. And then maybe you got away from it because of that. So
Yeah.
instead step back and said, hey, let me just go through another prep and be ready and re-qualify and show that I can do it again. And then I'll be ready to step on the stage at nationals. I think that was really smart of you and mature of you to do that.
Thank you. I mean, I have support from my coach and my bodybuilding team. Like that
Yeah.
was one of the craziest things about this experience. I was actually introduced to the sport in 2016. And at that time, I had a poor relationship with food and my own body. And
Mm-hmm.
the only other girl who I knew who was doing this competing thing, she also had a poor relationship with food. And I saw it firsthand and it made me uncomfortable. And I was like, well, shit, if this is what bodybuilding is, I don't want any part of it because it's fucking toxic. And these people don't know what they're doing. Because I
Right.
thought that everyone in the bodybuilding community was like this person. And so that turned me off for all all of this time, like until 2022. And I think the reason why I re-navigated back to the idea of bodybuilding was coming out of COVID. I was really like inspired by trail running. I loved doing distance. And by distance, I mean like endurance races, like 50Ks, like what we were talking about in the other podcast. And I was training for another 50K in 2021. And the 2021 50K got postponed to the following year because COVID was still, running rampant.
Mhm.
And I was committed to the training process, but at the same time that that race got canceled, school was coming back in person more often.
Right.
And that we had been notified that we were going to be fully back in person the following semester. And I had agreed to take on a leadership role in my student nutrition organization as president.
Mhm.
And so I was working in two research labs as a research assistant. I now had the president of SNOW, and I was taking 17 units of class.
And then
And
adding
so
distance running, where you're spending half of your Saturday on your long run every week on top of all the runs you do during the week, that's too much.
I did not have time in my life to do any sort of training like that. Like,
No.
honestly, because Wednesdays were like a 10-mile run for me, which is like 2 hours. And
Yeah.
then you would go out on Saturday and Sunday. I had long runs, but Saturday was like a 20-mile run. And then Sunday was another 10-mile run. So that was so many hours that I needed to put towards school. And I was never home. Like, it was a really hard thing to go through and to balance because I actually let go of all physical activity. Like I wasn't really doing yoga anymore, and I've been a yoga teacher since 2019, so that was weird. I didn't have a yoga community in San Diego because the vibe out there is very competitive and I just didn't like it. And so running was the only thing that I was doing outside of my house, and I didn't have time for it anymore. So my exercise was walking back and forth on campus for 12 hours a day because I was there for 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
And then when I got home, I couldn't be bothered to make my own food. So the Thai food place down the street knew my order by heart. I had 2 orders of fresh vegetable spring rolls with extra peanut sauce and some white rice on the side. And when I wasn't eating Thai food, I was drinking a smoothie at school because I didn't bring food with me. And I think that was like my worst um, physical shape, but my least care about it because I just didn't have the brain capacity to hold on to it.
You were already at your max capacity.
Yeah. And so coming off of that year commitment of the leadership role that I had taken on, my husband and I had a very transparent conversation that if I did that again, we would not be together anymore. And I
Fair.
was like, I know that he's partially kidding, but like also not at the same
There's like
time.
a modicum of truth in every joke, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah, we're laughing, but I'm not kidding.
Yeah. So, long story short, I did not do snow again for my last year of school. And instead, I decided that I was going to throw myself back into the gym, but I needed structure because I didn't have the bandwidth to make my own program and
Right.
follow my own macros because that was just so much brain energy that I didn't want to do. And so I ended up just hiring a coach. And it was funny because around this time, there was another girl that I had known in the military, actually. And I was on Facebook for one time out of the year that I normally go on that app.
Yeah.
And I hate Facebook. It's so stupid. But this girl, my friend Brooklyn, she had posted this post of her winning a competition. And I was like, God, she looks amazing. And this looks so fun. And then I saw her tags in that post, and she had tagged this company called Fit Body Fusion. And I
Mhm.
was like, what the heck is Fit Body Fusion? And that was the first time that I learned that there was actually teams that you could join
Yeah.
in bodybuilding, even though it's like a solo
An
sport, like
individual
the thing.
sport. But yeah, but there are teams for sure because there's multiple weight classes, there's multiple genders. Like there's a way to like navigate it from like a structural standpoint that you can all come together and still be an individual player in that sport. Like absolutely.
Yeah, it was so cool. So I originally I was planning on just signing up with her coach because they looked like they had a great relationship and whatever. But when I went onto the Fit Body Fusion website, they had this button that was just like sign up for a competition consultation or whatever, or like a coach consultation. And within that application, you can actually let the system choose a coach for you to interview with. And so I just did that because I didn't know any other coaches and I didn't know anyone else. And I think just prior life experience with choosing someone because of someone else, it did me dirty in the past. And so I was like, you
Sure.
know what? I'll just let the process take me where it takes me.
Yeah, see where it happens.
Yeah. And the coach that they assigned me with, her name's Jessica Quillian, and she is my coach now. And she has been my coach for the last year and a half. And that first phone call, it was like really good vibe from her. I mean, she's a mom and she's also a coach, and she's doing so many cool things with her personal life, but also still making time to be a coach. And I liked that she had other things to focus on besides, you know, just coaching people, because for me, it took the pressure off of whatever expectation there might be for me to perform well. And at the time that I joined with her, I was more of just like a lifestyle client. Like I didn't know that I wanted to compete. I was just like, I just need structure and I need
Yeah.
someone to help me with it and give me a training plan. And so the first couple of months, she threw me into a reverse diet and we built my macros up to, gosh, I think the first 6 months, I was up to like 2,300 or 2,400 calories or something like that. And we had started at 1,400 because she just like dropped everything down to my basal metabolic rate and then built me up from there. And during that time, I was training and I was doing a research internship at MIT. And I had trifecta meals coming to me every week because that was super easy to put into my fitness pal or whatever. So I really like I hit a groove. And there for the first 6 months or maybe 4 months that I was with her, we didn't do a single posing session. So my check-ins were just what I thought the pose looked like, and I would submit them to her. But when I got back from MIT, the first week of September was when I asked my coach if we could do a posing session together so I could learn how to do the check-in poses properly. And that first session of posing, she was like, Chelsea, do you want to do a show this year? Because I picked up the poses really quickly and she was like, I see a shape here. Like, let's go with it. And so we decided to do a show in December of 2022. And that's when I first stepped on stage. And the whole process has been such a joy. And I did that first show and I was like, I fucking love this. Like I just lit up on stage. Like I came alive. I created an alter ego name for myself because I looked like a drag queen version of myself and it was hilarious. So my stage name is Lindsay because she looks like a Lindsay.
That's awesome.
But so I did the bikini fitting. I did posing sessions every week. I still stuck to my program, both with training and with my eating. And I had no problem following the program because it was easy. I could just execute it. And when we got the feedback from the show, my coach was like, okay, let's do a reverse diet. And obviously we need to take an off season. And I was like, I'm committed to whatever length of off season you want to throw me into, because I know that I want to do this long term. And in order for me to do that, I need to grow some serious muscle because my glutes and my shoulders were a hindrance for sure on that stage. So we went into an off season. I built my macros up. I think the highest that they got was 2,900 calories. It was a lot of food. And I was most uncomfortable when I was at that number of food just because of how full I was, but also like body wise, I had never pushed myself past a certain point weight wise. And I would say that my off season has been more challenging than the prep for the show last year.
I've heard that from a lot of people in the show because, you know, you're putting on, number one, the uncomfortable factor of just being full all the time. Like it's something that you're not used to and it's hard to navigate. And then on top of that, you're doing things that are counterintuitive to what you're used to doing, right? Like you're in most physical fitness spaces, your goal in some capacity is like fat loss, weight loss, anything that's like a reduction in size, like that's just the typical like way you think about exercise, which
It's
in
a
and of
societal
itself,
norm.
and it's, I hate that societal norm, and
I do
it's like
too.
it's trash, it's not appropriate, but society, that's what is driven. And so to like go against that, especially when you're coming from the mindset of like you've already struggled with a relationship with food in whatever capacity that was, and because of struggling with food, chances are you also struggled with your body, like those kind of go hand in hand,
Right.
right? Like any kind of like alteration to that that goes against the norm of what you're used to doing would be a mind fuck to try and navigate how to like gain weight and do so in a way that's appropriate. Like you don't just want to go on a true like, you know, fat bulk, right? Like with
Right.
the growth rates bullshit that, you know, most people do, but like doing it like in any capacity where you're eating more, you're gaining weight. And when you start gaining weight and you already have issues, underlying issues that, you know, even though they've been resolved, are still there, it can mess with you and make you really like stressed, and that's
Yeah.
not ideal. And so like, yeah, that's totally understandable, and I've heard that a number of times from people that like that's the hardest part. The show prep itself is the easy part because you're doing what you're already used to doing, which is losing weight and cutting things and
Right.
reducing calories and all the stuff that you're dieting to do. That's the easy part. It's the hard part of like sticking to the part that's necessity, because you can't grow without a surplus. Like it's just not physiologically possible, and your goal is to grow, and so getting that goal is different than what you're used to. So it makes total sense.
Yeah, I think to that point also, like 2016 me would have been like so off put by this whole process. And I don't think I would have been able to handle it mentally. But I have worked really hard to establish a strong foundation of how I feel about myself and the way that I see food. And it's more for health than anything now.
Mm-hmm.
And so to transition that idea of like, how can I eat to perform the best to how can I eat to perform and look the best? It kind of is just like a natural progression that I've taken on. And I think the first 6 months of my improvement season, it was really uncomfortable. Because I really did see the scale go up every single week, and that was the goal. But
Right.
having a coach there to guide me through that mental mind fuck of like, okay, yeah, you're 20 pounds up from your show and you still have abs. Like that was the thing that was interesting to me, is like I compared my body composition from when I started in April of 2022 around a similar weight to like mid um improvement season. My body has done a complete 180 in a year. And
Yeah.
I have taken almost an entire year of improvement
Yeah.
from December to now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been really cool to see. So, what I'm hoping is that my body will hold on to the muscle that I've put on over the last year, because we're doing such a progression with fat loss. Like, we're going to probably take the whole 25 weeks to diet me down. But I also can foresee my stage weight being like 5 to 10 pounds up from where it was when I started, because I just have more muscle.
Yeah. And that's huge. And doing it slow like that, that's the appropriate way to do it. Like slow
I
and
agree.
steady race with a cut. Like you do.
And
I
when you
mean,
have a
just
knowledgeable coach, you have someone who already knows that. So you're not having to wing it. You know what I mean?
right, right. That's huge. That's awesome,
Yeah.
dude. Hell
Yeah.
yeah. I'm
So
excited.
the show that I'm doing in April, it's called the Wasatch Warrior, and it's in Utah, Salt Lake
Oh,
City.
yeah. Yeah.
And it's a bigger show. It's
Mhm.
a bigger show than the one that I did in December of 2022. And I'm trying not to let that psych me out, because it's a higher profile show, not only because there's going to be pro bikini competitors there, but I wanted to choose a show that had a pro bikini component to it, because those judges are the ones that are going to be at nationals. And then those are the judges who are going to see me if I do end up getting a pro card sometime in the future.
Yeah.
So
And it also gives you firsthand frame of reference of what you need to do. Like you get to see the pros in action. Like you get to see where they're like, for lack of better phrasing, better than you right now because of where you're at. You get to see where, like physically, like not just on a not on a video screen, not on the computer, like you're physically there and getting to compare and size up your competition to know where you need to focus your efforts to improve, to get to that level. And I think that experience in and of itself is invaluable, like both from the judges and from just seeing the direct competitors that you're trying to aspire to be is huge.
Yeah, I agree. I think the thing that's crazy to think about is how short a lot of these girls are. Because I know you have no context because we're on a video right now, but I'm 5'8", and
Oh,
that's
okay.
pretty tall for a
That is,
competitor.
yeah.
And
Yeah. I
most
mean,
of the
the
bikini
dudes
pros
are
on
short
stage,
too.
what?
The dudes are short too, typically. Like, I
I
mean,
know.
there's some big guys, but you're just like, you see them on the TV screen and they just look massive, right? Like, because they have so much muscle from the guy's side that they're just these hulking monsters. But for the most part, when you go and actually see them in person, like, I tower above a lot of them, and I'm not even tall. I'm like 5'10", 5'11", but I'm like looking down at these people, like it's crazy. But it
Yep,
makes sense
I
too,
know.
from a leverage standpoint. It's easier for somebody that's short from a lever arm standpoint to like press weight. It's easier in shorter distance to get from A to B, so you can push more at a quicker standpoint and gain muscle at a more rapid quick. But so it just
Well,
makes
and like bone structure wise, like
yeah,
you have less body mass to fill out with
right,
muscle when
yeah,
you're, 5'3" or 5'4" or whatever, which is like, I think the average bikini competitor at the pro level is like 5'3" or something like
yeah.
that. Like they're really short girls. So I think for me, I just want to do well for myself. Like I am competitive in nature, so doing well at a show is one of the benchmarks for me,
Mhm.
but I'm also mindful that it's very subjective like we were talking about. And so it all depends on who shows up.
Right,
But the more shows that I watch, the more that I can tell that there's probably just going to be like a group of 5 to 10 girls at the show over the entire bikini category at the like local level that are there to qualify for nationals. And you
right,
can tell in their posing, you can tell in their presentation, and you can tell in their body, just the way that they've prepared themselves. They are more prepared because they want to go to the next level. And I can't say that for, you know, 80% of the people who show up on stage at a local show.
right. Yeah, no, I mean it makes total sense, and I'm excited to see the progression. I'll be following along and cheering you on from afar. So I'm pumped. But
Thank
my
you.
battery on
Shameless
my
plug.
iPad is, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say shameless plug the shredded lentil Instagram if you are new here.
Yeah, that's I'll definitely be cheering you on both of your lentil pages.
I know I made myself easy to find, I guess, because it's a
Yeah,
lentil, a
it's all
lentil
about
theme.
the lentil life. I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
But you said
But,
your iPad's dying.
yeah, I just got the notice that it's about to die, and I don't have my charger. It's on the other side of the room that I couldn't plug it in. So before it cuts us off, I'm gonna have to wrap it up pretty quick here.
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking me bodybuilding questions. That was a fun departure from our first conversation today. So
No, that was a good time. Good time. But
yeah,
awesome. Well, yeah, this has been a good. But it's been a treat. It's been a good time.
I agree. It's been great to spend so many hours with you this morning. Again, thank you so much for your time, Sean. It was great talking to you.
Oh, for sure. Likewise. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. I'll talk to you again soon. For real
Awesome.
this time.
I know, right?
All right,
Awesome.
I'll
Well,
see you.
take care. Bye bye.